Hey everyone, I'm Louis Menchaca from Level 1 Gaming, and I'm bringing our official video review of the Bethesda published game Deathloop, developed by Arcane Lion. I want to preface this by saying that this is a companion piece to the written review, and I would encourage you all to check out the written review because it goes into far greater detail than I can here in this video review. I don't want this video to be too long, so I'll put a link to the written review in the description. I also have one correction that I need to make from the written review, that's the card system. In the written review, I'd said that the PS5 on the OS level allows for developers to place video hints and walkthroughs. I initially thought that the card system was only showing my progress, and in the rush to get the written review out, I didn't actually play around in that menu and find the video walkthroughs. So if you're ever stuck in the game, then you can and use the card system instead of going to YouTube and finding a walkthrough. So with that said, let's get on with the review. Deathloop takes place on an island named Black Reef that is stuck in a time loop. On the island, the player plays as an assassin named Colt who is trying to break the time loop. The game begins with Colt waking up on the beach with no memories of himself. He doesn't even remember his own name, but luckily, Colt can read the in-game text which tells him his name, which is a weird fourth wall break in this game. The in-game text guides him through his adventures and provides snarky remarks from time to time. During his time trying to break the loop, Colt is attacked by another assassin named Juliana. Colt and Juliana seem to be the only two people on the island with memories of the previous loops. Everyone else on the island has no memory of the previous loops and goes on about their daily routines. There also seems to be an implied history between Colt and Juliana. After a while, Colt soon learns that the only way to break the loop is to kill 8 people, and it has to be all in one day. So it's up to the player to hunt down these characters and learn their daily routines and kill them all in one perfect run. Although the story is simple and straightforward, the story is 100% in harmony with the gameplay. There were times when the dialogue and the lore of the world would perfectly explain the game's mechanics, and to me it doesn't matter if the story was written to justify the game's mechanics or the other way around. The game's story had plenty of mystery and intrigue to keep me going.
Alright, now just get in.
Okay, let's be real, the game's soundtrack isn't really anything to write home about. I think it did its job in creating an atmosphere and mood, but there isn't any tracks that stand out to me. When the game has action, the music swells and gets bombastic. When you are sneaking around, the game's music is quiet and delivers on tension and intensity. I have to say, creating a memorable score and soundtrack is hard, and everyone wants to be that guy that writes that song, but it's much easier said than done. The audio design of the game is top-notch. The sound mixing is perfect, as everything can be heard from footsteps to people talking in the distance. Just one minor nitpick is the fact that the game's NPCs used recycled dialogue. And I'm not talking about the dialogue that you can chalk up to it being a time loop. No, I'm saying that an NPC would mutter to themselves something, and then later on in that same stage, another NPC would mutter the exact same thing. Full disclosures, I did not play the game on my 4K TV. I had to play the game in a 1080p monitor in order to capture footage. So I didn't get to experience the breadth of the game's visuals, including but not limited to HDR, color accuracy, the best contrast, and 4K textures. So with that said, I still think that the game is gorgeous. The art of this world kind of reminded me of BioShock in that retro aesthetic that it employed. Since the games take place on an island, there are vistas to behold when you can get to high places. There was one small hiccup that I encountered during my playtime, and it only happened once. Well, it actually happened a couple of times, but they were basically in quick succession of each other, so it's basically just one big time. But I experienced frame stutters, where the game would still be running, but my screen was frozen. It's not something that I was alarmed by, and the problem just ended up solving itself. But I just wanted to let you know that there may be potential performance hiccups. So this is where I'm going to deviate off the script. And the reason why is because the gameplay is on screen and it should speak for itself. I just sort of want to take the time to give commentary on what I wrote in the written review. So to begin, I listed off a bunch of great games that I felt that the game was either taking inspiration from or what the game was reminding me of. I said that the game was a jack of all trades and a master at some, and I meant that. The game is so complex with so many things at play that it's an achievement unto itself that the game didn't crumble under its own weight, or just as worse, to say that the game lacks focus. So I only have two gripes with the gameplay. The bigger one being that the fact that it takes a long time for the game to get started. I sort of brushed over it in my written review, but I just wanted to clarify it further. In my playthrough, it took me about 3 hours before I stopped getting tutorials and about 5 hours before the game truly opened up and let me start experimenting. The game is so complex that the game, by necessity, has to withhold mechanics in order to piecemeal it out over time as to not inundate the player with too much too fast. People complained about The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess and that it has a slow start, taking about 2 hours before the game opened up. Now, I'm not saying that the game is as bad as Twilight Princess's start, because I did find that to be a slog. But what I am saying is that there would be a large percentage of players out there who may not get past the first 5 hours of the game and see what's truly on offer. The other minor gripe I had was the fact that the game only has one difficulty. I would have preferred if there was an easy, normal, and difficult mode in this game, because difficulty is something that can help with accessibility, and there were times where I was frustrated and I wish I could have just toggled down to an easier difficulty. Ultimately though, that point is a bit moot, because the difficulty was fair and balanced, especially as you become more powerful and start learning the game in and out. Lastly, I want to quickly mention two things I completely forgot to say in the written review. The game features a waypoint system, and really what game doesn't, but I felt that this is a godsend because the game's map is pretty large and sprawling with side paths and shortcuts and side quests everywhere, and having a waypoint helped me mainline the game better. Finally, I forgot to mention about the passage of time. The game doesn't have a Majora's Mask clock or anything like that, but when you load into an area, you can stay in there as long as you want and the sun won't set. Instead, the day is split into 4 distinct periods, and that's morning, noon, afternoon, and night. It's amazing how the maps were reused and the map changes from a sunny day to a winter storm. In the menu, you can toggle between the time of day that you want to tackle, and different things are open at different times of the day. I think it's a clever way of both reusing assets and making the most out of the world. But all those gripes aside, the gameplay in Deathloop is king. I need to make it clear that the game lets you be in charge of how you want to tackle it. Do you want to go full stealth Metal Gear Solid style, or do you want to mow every enemy down Doom style? The choice is yours, and the game doesn't punish you for your choice. Instead, the game gives you the tools you need to build your character's loadout to best suit your playstyle. Deathloop, in my opinion, is a complete package. The game is a jack of all trades and a master at some. Could this game have been better streamlined? Sure, but that did not take away from my enjoyment of this game. This game is amazing, and none of the nitpicks I mentioned prior could keep me from enjoying the game. This game is easily a 9 out of 10. Deathloop is out on Tuesday, September 14th on PS5 and PC, and will retail for $59.99 for the standard edition. A review code was provided by the publisher for purposes of review, and the game was reviewed on PS5. I'm Louis Menchaca, and you can find me on Twitter at Chakalaki88, link in the description, and my podcast is Ready Press Play, where you can hear my thoughts on all things gaming. It airs here on Saturdays on this very YouTube channel, so go ahead and subscribe if you don't mind. Finally, I want to say thanks once again to Bethesda for sending the code that allowed for this review to happen, and thank you to the people of Level 1 Gaming for selecting me to be the one to review the game. Once again, I'm Louis Menchaca, and I'm signing off.